For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. It's an interesting message, especially because we are hearing it as we prepare to celebrate Labor Day, a day when we recognize the hard work of so many people who make life as we know it possible. A day when we celebrate and recognize the hard work of the many people who would likely not consider themselves to be honored guests at many banquets. But why shouldn't they feel like honored guests? As I reflected on the readings in the gospel for this morning, I couldn't help but be reminded of how truly blessed many of us are. Think about how most of us here in the capital region of New York, or almost anywhere in the United States, think about how we live as compared to most people in the world. For the most part, we have everything we need. And if something we need is something that we would rather not do or take care of ourselves, there's almost always someone who is willing to do that work for us. Shouldn't we be honoring the work and the willingness of those who make our lives easier? Now, I can only speak for myself, but I can give you some simple examples of what I'm talking about. I haven't changed the oil in my own car in many, many years. Shouldn't I appreciate and honor the work of the mechanic who does that work for me? Or when I go out to eat, sitting in a restaurant, I have a server who takes my order and brings me my food and my drink, and never mind the people in the kitchen who I never get the opportunity to see. All people working hard so that I can relax and enjoy myself over a meal. I use these examples of service industry jobs, and I'm sure there are many, many others that you can think of. But I use them because I can tell you, I almost never stop to think about it. I don't stop to honor the work that these people are doing, work that I can certainly do myself, but don't necessarily want to. Shouldn't I be honoring their work? Shouldn't we all be honoring their work? And then there are the jobs that people do for us that benefit our whole community. Jobs that we may not have the skills or the knowledge or the ability to do ourselves. Sometimes we don't have the education. Think about first responders, who we absolutely rely on in the case of an emergency. Think about the hours and hours of training that they go through. Or the road crews, who keep our roads safe and passable. They are doing work, in many cases, that's far more dangerous, certainly, than I want to do, and I suspect many of us don't want to do. And teachers and school administrators, who we rely on not only to teach our children, but to care for them for many hours a day. They're required to have more education than many of us have or have any burning desire to obtain. And I'm sure, again, there are many, many other jobs that benefit the community that we don't want to do or can't do ourselves for one reason or another. Do we honor them and their efforts? Or do we complain that they're slowing down traffic or that they earn too much for the hours that they work? When we don't honor their efforts, those people who do the things, that do the jobs that we either don't want to or can't do ourselves, or that we don't have the skills for, are we not guilty of exalting ourselves? As you gather this weekend with family and friends to celebrate the end of summer, please remember that the reason most of us have tomorrow off is to celebrate Labor Day, a day when we should be honoring all of those who work so hard to allow the rest of us to live the comfortable lives that we live. And ask yourself, who should have the seat of honor at the table? Me, or these people who work so hard to make my life more comfortable? Remember, as we heard from Sirach in the first reading, conduct your affairs with humility, and you will be loved more than the giver of gifts. Humble yourself the more, the greater you are, and you will find favor with God. And then ask yourself, where should I sit when I arrive at the banquet.